I've lost the connection as well.
Yeah. So Sam, you don't mind?
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Can you hear me?
Just,
Sam? Yeah, no worries, man.
All right, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. All right. So the question again, the intention of doing this interview.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, like, it's, I feel like you all deserved to hear from me about what happened. I feel incredibly bad about it, and I feel like, I don't know if that's the least that I can do.
All right, so the first question I have, and I know chat has got a lot of questions as usual, but the first question is, there were many other executives around you, and I won't name anyone, and they've been pretty silent throughout all this. So my question to you is, how involved were they in making those major decisions?
I mean, to some extent, I think that there was a pretty big diffusion of responsibility. And I mean, I feel incredibly bad about what happened. I feel bad about everything. And I think
that
We're
Sam,
losing the connection.
You're choppy. You're choppy again. You're choppy again. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Maybe go somewhere with a better internet connection.
Do you have a different connection?
It is not that. But anyway, it should be good for now. So
okay.
Yeah, I think, like, at the end of the day, look, I was CEO of FTX, and like that means that one way or another, like, what happens is my responsibility. And I'm the one person who doesn't get to say that whatever, that wasn't sort of like, that wasn't in my realm, that wasn't something that I was chiefly responsible for, that's something that other people were thinking about. Like, I shouldn't get to say that. And I did massively screw up I wasn't on top of shit. I wasn't on top of some of the most important things that I should have been. That's on me. And, I don't think, I think no one was really on top of, international, position risk management. And, a lot of people could have been, but I was the person who should have been responsible for making sure that someone was.
How involved were you on the Alameda side versus the CEO and co-CEO at that company?
I haven't really been involved in Alameda for a number of years, and I get, like, periodic high level summaries from them on some of what was going on, but I haven't been making trading decisions there. I haven't been making day-to-day decisions there. I hadn't been paying much attention to it. And part of the reason that I had been paying so little attention to it was out of, frankly, out of a concern about conflicts of interest.
I have a follow-up question on that.
If we don't. So Kim, the way we structured it is, so we've got a list of questions, me and Chet, that we've prepared, and then we'll give the mic to the rest of the stage to ask follow-up questions.
Yeah, it's just important that there is context here to what he's just said. So if you don't mind, you told me that I can ask the first question.
Question when we move the mic to the panel. So you'll be the first one to ask a question after we're done with the line of questioning, if you don't mind.
Yeah, but he said something that is quite important that I think is relevant to catch up on, if I may.
Oh, I'll let you just add this comment, please, and then we'll go through the line of questioning, please, Kim. And just keep it short, if you don't mind, please.
I appreciate it. So Caroline Ellison, the former CEO of Alameda Research, says that you knew that FTX customer deposits were misused against your own terms of service. And then you've stated in several interviews, without much confidence, I may add, that you didn't know. And by saying that, you are basically throwing Caroline under the bus, because if you didn't know, then she must be the culprit who is legally responsible for billions of missing, right? And it's not. Caroline had a romantic relationship. So my take from that is that you had power over her and that she did what you asked her to. So my two would anyone believe?
You're dropping out, Kim.
Yeah, why would anyone believe anything you say when you are
They shouldn't
throwing
even
your
admit
own
it on
lover
space,
under
man.
the bus? And then I was told.
I'll let you, please, Kim, if you can get to the question so we can get through the line of questioning, if you don't mind, please.
Caroline is here and listening right now. So is there anything you would like to say to her?
I'm deeply, I mean, look, I fucked up big, but I'm pretty offended by some parts of that. Like, Caroline and I had been together for a while. I don't control her. I never did. I think it's really fucked that you would say that I would, that's how things work. And, you know, putting that aside for a second, like, I wasn't super involved in Alameda. I was not involved at all in the trading. I hadn't been for years. I was intentionally not getting involved in it because I was concerned about a conflict for interest. But you know, as to you know, I guess I'm not entirely sure what the question was. There's sort of.
We'll go back. We'll go back to the line of questioning. Chet, I'll give you the mic because I know that was one of your questions as well.
You
Chet,
know what
go
the
ahead.
question was, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
So SBF, thank you for at least coming here today. Were a customer assets ever backed one-to-one at FTX?
So FTX, it's a margin trading platform. It's a derivatives platform. So like everyone was depositing collateral, you know, putting on positions, long positions, short positions, you know, futures positions, borrows. You know, the collateral that FTX held was equal to the sum of those customer positions. But there were both positive and negative numbers there. And so,
well, what does that mean? What does that mean?
So, well, what it means is that if you as a customer, you know, if you deposit $1,000 and then, you know, withdraw 1/1000th of a Bitcoin from the exchange, or, you know, use that to sell Bitcoin or something like that, you've put on a margin position there, or you know, or if you do it with a Bitcoin futures position, and you know, you like, you know, many of the customers had negative balances in assets. That's sort of how the platform functioned. And
but my question is, if I deposited Bitcoin into FTX and intended to trade with it on the exchange, or use it in the derivatives, whatever it would be, would I be able to withdraw that at all times at 1-to-1?
So the way that, I mean, the way it worked, again, everyone had deposited collateral and people were borrowing and lending from each other on the platform, those assets, and withdrawing them. But it should have been the case that, you know, we could have liquidated any of those positions, that we could have margin called them and sold them off to regenerate whatever.
But was it ever the case? Was it ever the case that there was a 1-to-1 backing of assets at FTX to where, let's say 2018, 2019, was there ever a point in time where there was an actual 1-to-1 backing in the custodial portion of FTX?
So it was always the case.
How was that ensured?
This, if you include the negative positions in that you have positives and you have.
Okay, you broke up. We lost your connection after you said it was always the case.
Sorry. So it.
You're breaking up again, Sam.
Sometimes
Sam, are you there?
Twitter Space is just an awful idea if you're gonna do it, man. You should have just did it on YouTube, man. Come on.
Damn it.
You know these Twitter Spaces be janky, man. Elon Musk, man. Holla at your boy, man. Y'all need to find some developers to fix
He's
this.
rugging the space just like he rugged his customers.
Can you see the can you see him?
Hello?
Chat on stage.
Yes,
perfect. You're back.
okay, we can hear you again.
Sorry.
Is your connection fixed now?
Yeah, it's not a connection thing. It's when my phone gets a notification that it cuts out for a second.
Okay.
Do you wanna
phone in not disturb?
If you can, put it to not disturb or turn off notification. That'll be good.
All right, give me a second.
Chat,
and just a reminder for panelists, if you don't mind,
Yep.
we'll open up the mic for the panelists after the questions, please. Go ahead.
Sorry, that was a good idea.
Okay. Dude around all the time.
So you were telling us that it was always the case.
Well, that it was always the case, that the customer balances, were equal to the assets, as long as you count the negatives as well as the positives. That if you add up all of the customer balances, positive and negative, that those were equal, to the assets that FTX had. The problem is that there are both positives and negatives there, which is the nature of margin trading. But it should have been the case that at the end of the day, we could have margin called any of those accounts and been able to liquidate them in time.
You did have auto liquidation procedures in place for many accounts at FTX, correct? That was actually part of the system.
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, I'll get to that a little bit later because there's a little bit deeper dive on that. When did it stop being the case that customer assets were actually backed one-to-one?
Well, it never stopped being the case.
Well, it has to have stopped being the case, SBF. If people can't withdraw their money, then it's not one-to-one.
They on his ass.
It never stopped being the case in the context of the fact that there were both positive and negative balances on the exchange, and that if you added all of those up, it added up to the same set of assets. But because there are negative balances, because there are people with borrowers, there are people who are short, that meant that the total amount of assets was not the same as the gross sum of all of the long positions put together, which meant that in order to be able to allow everyone to withdraw all assets from the venue, you would have to settle all contracts and close down all open positions and all open margin positions that anyone had. That's the nature of a margin trading exchange. But to that second point, there's obviously a really big failure there of risk management, and that's on me.
And you said that FTX is what you paid the most attention to.
Yep.
So much so that you claim you couldn't track Alameda's compliance properly. Surely, though, you had the time to be checking, on the balance sheets of the company you were laser focused on, right? Like watching the statistics on trading revenues could not have been taking up so much of your day that you didn't have the ability to oversee compliance and user funds.
So I'm not sure what you mean by compliance in context there, but
compliance to legal laws, fiduciary responsibilities, risk management.
Sure. So I think that first of all, I absolutely could have and deeply wished that I had paid a lot more attention to risk management. Like that was a deep failing, and it was a really embarrassing mistake for me to have made. And I think it was a result in part of me getting a bit less grounded and of me starting to get distracted from all of the details of the company. There are still some I was paying a lot of attention to, but not as many as could have been. And I was paying too much attention to higher level things, to long-term strategic goals, rather than spending as much energy as I should have, as I absolutely should have, on.
And you've stated that the markets plunging were a large part of why FTX had to shutter its door. That's essentially one of the reasons. You gave two reasons, right? And one of the big reasons is you said the markets plunged. But if the funds are backed one-to-one, changes in the market prices versus the dollar have zero impact on being able to withdraw funds if it's set up properly. It just needs the dollar. It just means the dollar value of those funds has changed, correct? So technically, that's not a real reason for why people weren't able to take it out. That's a failure.
I think that's not actually how a derivatives exchange works. On a derivatives exchange, and you can look at the clawbacks that a lot of exchanges had back in 2018, the really frequent clawbacks. And the core problem that was going on there was, in order for everyone to be able to realize what they think they have, you need to be able to close down all positions on the venue such that no accounts end up net negative. So you need to be able to take every single account, in theory, liquidate them, close down all margin, all futures positions, such that there are no negative numbers or positions or balances anywhere, and do that. And if you have a long position, if some user has a long position on the exchange and markets start crashing, at some point that position is going to be underwater. And at the point where that position is underwater, that means you aren't going to be able to close it down, while still leaving that account with a positive balance. It'll have a
But it
negative
shouldn't be
balance.
able. It shouldn't be able in a properly managed environment for it to go underwater, right? Essentially, because if we're to look at your terms of service, which says that you can't loan out user funds, it shouldn't be possible for those user funds to end up basically being loaned out to those margins.
So that was one piece of the terms of service, but there are many pieces to the terms of service concerning other parts of the exchange.
Yes, that doesn't change that parts of the terms of service. One, the fact that there are other parts of the terms of service doesn't change the paragraph of the terms of service that says you can't lend out the depositor's funds to FTX trading, and FTX trading could not move them to be traded. And now, granted, when you spoke with Vox or the reporter at Vox over there, you seemed to indicate that, in fact, funds were lended out from FTX to Alameda, and Alameda then made the trades, and therefore that's why you're able to kind of make the statement that FTX wasn't doing investments here.
So the parts of the terms of service are overridden by other parts of the terms of service. Well, it was the case that I don't know if that was part of the. I don't know exactly.
So was it your intention to use user funds, customer funds, to lend out to others on the platform without their consent?
So if you imagine any futures position that a customer had on the platform, that is a situation where, in order for one side that has a position on to be able to be made whole, it has to be the case that the other side is able to close down their position, that those mark-to-market gains that they have are conditional, and that they're credited with on the platform are conditional on us being able to liquidate the other side of that futures contract without that account going under. The same is true of all spot margin positions on the platform, and that was spelled out in the terms of service if you read the full terms of service. And so there's that piece of it. There's a lot of other things going on as well, and so I don't want to say that was the only thing that went wrong. It wasn't.
Okay, we'll go deeper into that a little bit later. You were the majority stakeholder by a wide margin.
I've just got two quick questions.
Go for it, Mario.
Chat. Also, I've just got another panelist, Chat, who could be jumping in. I've given him the right to jump in to comment on a few points. So if he jumps in,
y'all know he's kind of sweet, man. Y'all know he's kind of
Sam,
sweet.
my question is, was Alameda allowed to remove assets from FTX? And is that how they paid back Genesis and others who demanded to close their loans?
So, all users were to some extent allowed to remove assets from FTX in that, they could deposit.
Dog can never just answer
funds
a question.
To FTX, they could withdraw, and they could even withdraw more than they had of some assets as long as it was over collateralized by other assets. So that piece was, in theory, not specific to one firm, and was rather a feature of how the platform worked. That's how margin trading works. It's how collateralized but not fully funded positions work on platforms. That being said, obviously, something really bad happened, and that something was that position got way too big, and I vastly underestimated.
Okay, we'll get into that piece of that in just we'll get into that piece in just a second after a few more questions. Are you still the owner of Alameda right now?
I mean, there's a definitional issue given what you think of the Chapter 11 process. I was a large owner of it prior to that.
And how much of a stake did you own it?
Chet, before we go down that road, can I just get some clarity on the loan book thing? Because I've got a message here from an owner of an exchange, and he says the following. He says, the way margin trading works is via the loan book, that where people explicitly put their funds to be available for others to borrow for the specific rate. For people that didn't put their funds in the loan book, all those assets should have always been backed one-to-one and never touched. So it's a case of saying that in order for my money to be lent out, you would have had to have my specific permission, because I would have had to put it out there to be available for people to borrow against when they take a position, right?
Rand was talking to CZ Binance.
I totally hear you on that.
That's CZ Binance.
There were billions of dollars in the borrow lending book.
CZ, you ain't slick.
On top of that, there are
You ain't
billions of
slick,
dollars of open interest on futures contracts, which is another place where, in order for that to be able to settle successfully, it needs to be the case that that you have, you basically need to have, everyone be able to be liquidated there in time. And so that's another source where this came from. There were some amount of lines of credit given to some firms on the venue. And then there were some other effects on top of that, that when stacked together, created a position that was larger than it should have been, larger than I thought it was, larger than I should have allowed it to become, and represented a
So,
real failure of oversight and management.
Sam, are you saying that there were people that had their collateral not on the platform and they were trading against collateral that was not actually even in the system? Because if the collateral was on the system,
Yep.
then to liquidate the collateral should have been automatic. But if the collateral was out of the system, so if you're saying Alameda, for example, or others had collateral, but the collateral was not in FTX, then isn't that a breach of the terms of service?
Oh, they did have collateral on FTX, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately, but this was a huge mistake of mine as well, because I should have anticipated, the prospect of this and should not have
What happened to
allowed
that collateral?
things. But, well, it decreased quite a bit in value. And so you
My
look
bad, y'all. I had to
at
take that
it
feed
decreased
off.
by, I think, many billions of dollars in value over a 2-day period, starting on November 6th.
Okay, and
So the-
Who in the chat?
yeah, go ahead, Rand. Go ahead, Rand. I'll take that.
So you're saying that the collateral went down so quickly that you didn't have time to liquidate the position quickly enough to be able to get the borrow side and the lend side into equilibrium?
Yeah, I can probably
Yeah.
share it. I could probably throw some a little bit here as well. The way that obviously works is on an LTV ratio. So when building out the product, the risk management margin system for this runs off a loan to value ratio. So that's how they're deciding on when collateral needs to be put back into the system to bring it back up and to meet that. Unfortunately, the mix between a bank run at the same time as a massive drop within what the people had used on there as collateral. Some of them had FTT token, for example. And when we saw the drop in that, they're unable to meet the LTV requirements. So there is actually nothing there to liquidate, right? In terms of collateral, the actual lenders themselves needed to provide more collateral into the system. And because of what they were providing as collateral had dropped in value, this becomes a massive waterfall effect. So this isn't just an FTX product problem. I mean, the risk management margin system on FTX is great. I mean, clawbacks on derivatives was a very tough thing to tackle. I think FTX did that very well. This is a bit of an oversight on the counterparty risk to FTX, not just FTX itself in this matter. If Sam could probably correct that, that's obviously there's more factors than just the management on FTX's side. There's a counterparty issue here as well, in which what they had collateralized their instruments on FTX against.
Yeah, everything you said there is correct. And it was absolutely a failure of counterparty management. It was a failure of oversight of the account. It was a failure of management responsibility. And it was a failure of understanding or even, frankly, thinking that hard about what a real downside scenario there would look like, because
you said
can I add to this?
Hold on, Zero. So I appreciate it if I'm able to continue my line of questioning.
And before you do, Chad, just for speakers, just please mute after you speak, just to avoid background noise, because I can't mute you at the moment. My space is glitching. Go ahead, Chad.
Okay. So Sam, you said that you fucked up, right? And you got the numbers wrong by magnitudes of billions of dollars in regards to Alameda's balances on FTX. Right?
Shout out to Greater Good.
Now, while we can all make mistakes, right? As a graduate of MIT, that seems highly improbable. So how precisely, I think you need to explain this quite in detail to our audience. How precisely did you mess up a calculation that far in a way that happened to massively benefit Alameda and FTX's balance sheets in a fraudulent manner?
I'm gonna answer the question as if there weren't a few of those words in it, but basically,
bro, it was fraud. It was a scam. You get mad when people bring up
fraud. Don't
fraud.
have access most of the data right now. I've lost access to a number of the systems, and so because of that, this is all piecing together.
He don't want him to use that
From
word,
my
John.
recollection, from the pieces of data I have been able to find from the analyses I did in the days shortly after the crash. So these are all going to be approximate answers, and I apologize for that. I don't have the exact ones, but the
Well, you referenced an accounting quirk, correct?
yes, that's right. So,
And
yep.
what is that?
Yeah. So what happened there was the following, and I think there's some tweets, about this that sort of reference this fact. You scroll back to 2019 when FTX was first founded, and at that time we were trying to get bank accounts for FTX. We couldn't. We eventually did, a few years later, but 2019, 2020, we couldn't get bank accounts that could take customer deposits for FTX. We obviously were operating crypto wallets and had crypto deposits and withdrawals, but some customers, generally ones that had in many cases sort of like pursuing relationships OTC with Alameda, would wire money to Alameda Research, asking to be credited to their FTX account, and they'd wire it straight to Alameda, and then we would do a ledger transfer on FTX, effectively from Alameda to that to whoever sent that wire transfer in order to credit them. Over the last few years, we transitioned away from that system because over the last few years, FTX was able to get its own bank accounts in its own name, and straightforwardly take customer deposits through that. There are legal documents drawn up around that payment service relationship. I didn't know the details of those, and there was an accounting system built out for it that I know the details of.
Who built out the accounting system?
A set of developers. It's
at your direction or at someone else's direction?
I honestly don't remember. It was 3 years ago and 3.5 years ago, and I think that
story, Sam,
I was probably involved in some very high level discussions around it, but I don't remember, and I don't know if I ever knew exactly who was involved in making exactly those decisions.
Why not?
So, Chet, do you mind if I just ask a question? You mentioned that people were depositing money into Alameda, and then Alameda was doing a ledger transfer to FTX. Isn't that highly illegal, though, specifically in an exchange environment? Isn't it illegal for a related party to act as a middleman between a customer and an exchange?
Talk to him, Rand.
I don't think so. Can you point to in what way? Sorry, obviously it can be done in a poor manner. Like you could implement it in a way which is not okay. And I think it should be disclosed, which it was disclosed.
So what was Alameda's role? What was Alameda acting as? If I was putting money into Alameda and that money was appearing on the FTX exchange as a credit in my account, what was Alameda's role in that structure? Because they would need to have a money transmitting license or a broker dealer license or something if they were accepting money from a customer that was then landing up on an exchange. No,
go crazy in
None
the
of
chat,
this
man.
was
What
on
y'all think
FTX
about
US.
SBF?
And by the way, FTX US, to my knowledge, is fully solvent, fully funded.
Is he a
There's
hero?
nothing
Is he a
strange that
fraud?
happened there, to my knowledge. And
Hero or fraud?
I think should be
Let me know in the
returning
chat.
all customer funds and should be opening up withdrawals.
Why did you file it for bankruptcy then?
I'm an idiot. I don't know. I was given poor information by lawyers. I was pressured very heavily to do so by people I no longer believe were acting in the interest of customers. It was 4:30 a.m. I was extremely exhausted, being hounded by many people. I made yet another really poor judgment call.
Before we go to the bankruptcy.
Hold on a second, Mario. This is an important question. Who all was there at that meeting?
They hounded this man.
I was speaking with legal counsel at the time.
Were your parents present at that meeting as well?
I actually don't know if I'm even allowed or supposed to say who is there, but
the first day, the bankruptcy declaration seemed to say that that was actually the case. At 4:30 a.m., you finally resigned with your parents. There, you were convened with the lawyers and the parents. And And so why are you hesitant to mention the fact that your parents were present at that meeting?
I'm in general hesitant because of there are limits to what you can say about some conversations that involve legal counsel, and so I was just being hesitant out of an abundance of caution there.
But
But
I mean,
there's an importance here that you want to dive into,
Morris,
I'm happy to do it.
Well, no, I'm just interested
Smooth,
here.
talk
I
to
mean,
him, Smooth.
you said you're not really interested in taking your legal counsel right now. Who's representing you right now at this stage?
Oh, I do have legal counsel right now. I have new legal counsel, and
okay, how are you paying for them?
I need to ask one question before we're moving on to the topic. One more question
like when
about the Alameda getting the funds. So just quickly, chat, and I'll give you the mic back for the line of questioning. So the dollars, Sam, that were sent to Alameda because FTX didn't have a bank account. So they were used by Alameda like it's their own money when they were really customer assets all along. And Caroline knew. Is that correct?
Sorry.
Can I kind of extend on this question?
No, because the question wasn't asked to you. This question's
no. So let him. Real Zero Sum, bro. It's okay. Zero Sum, extend quickly to that question, and then I'll let Sam answer it.
Yeah, I just to extend on a little bit. In regards to the funds at Alameda, was obviously we saw Brett and we saw Sam leave from obviously FTX US and also Alameda sometime last year, which kind of leads to I guess a highlighter point that something went wrong back then. What position, do you know of a position exactly that Alameda took, or was it with the collateralized instruments we were talking about earlier? Did perhaps say Sam, Tribeca or Caroline, did they happen to get involved within the Luna and the 3AC crash? Was Alameda obviously victim to that? Because looking on chain, it seems to be that's where the volume started to drop off. The FTT token started to need to really be pegged at 22. It seems like that is the around about the time that you guys really suffered a liquidity crunch through Alameda that needed to be plugged.
There were a bunch of different questions there.
Exactly, man.
Damn. I'll try and go through some of them. I'm not going to remember all of them,
thirsty
but
as hell. Why are y'all so thirsty?
But by going through some of those, so as for why Brett and Tribeca left, I don't think it had anything to do with this. I think and they can talk for themselves about why they did, but from my from what I knew, I think it was entirely I think it was personal. In terms of talking about timing, I don't have granular detail here. I don't have access to that right now, and I wasn't running Alameda, so I don't know exactly what happened. I don't believe that there was a large loss coming from Luna itself, but I do think Alameda was probably quite long the market in general, that it had a net long position, and that the general market collapse that happened then did decrease its asset values a non-trivial amount. I think there are a lot of other questions out there.
It's okay. So I'll give the mic back. So I'll give it back to Chet. Chet, I'll let you continue with the line of questioning, please.
They got wrecked.
All right.
Wrecked.
Now, you've claimed that Alameda's trading ties with FTX had lessened significantly over
Carolina
years.
too. You got wrecked too.
Yeah.
Y'all got wrecked.
Yet data from Arkham Intelligence and reviews of public blockchain records show that over 50% of Alameda's deposits and withdrawal volume since early 2018 had gone through FTX from all data analyzed prior to August 31st of this year. Their data also showed, quote, 22% of on-chain deposits and withdrawals to FTX digital wallets interact with wallets belonging to Alameda, close quote. And Anchain.ai was also able to reveal that from June 1st till July 22nd, Alameda's known wallets were the largest stablecoin depositors and sources of liquidity to all of FTX's known wallet addresses. And your firms were made aware of this data, correct?
So just to kind of jump ahead of some of this, I think those are all very similar statements.
I prefer that you just answer the question. Were your firms made aware of what I just asked you?
I'm not sure. I was vaguely aware of some things related to that.
Bloomberg reached out to Alameda on September 14th about this, did they not?
I wouldn't know. I'm not Alameda.
You own Alameda. You wouldn't have been consulted on any press. You weren't consulted on anything that had to do with press in Alameda, ever. Is that your
Not
claim?
John. I don't know that I can
No,
make
I
a
ain't trying to
statement about
record
ever. I
it.
can't
I'm trying to find
remember
out emojis.
having been consulted on many things related to Alameda Press. I don't remember this particularly coming up, and I think I may have been.
Well, but you just said a few seconds ago that you remember something kind of like this.
Sorry, I remember chatter about some things like this in the
How do I
That's
crypto
interesting because you just
ecosystem.
contradicted yourself. So this means that you would have been aware of an issue already ongoing at a minimum
Chat on
as
his
far
ass.
back as September. If we're to believe that you didn't know anything prior, right?
Now, this how you
So
interview.
why would this not cause you to look deeper into something that would appear to show, years after you claim the separation had waned, that Alameda still had too much power on FTX trades?
So can I answer the question now?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's
Chet,
please.
please allow
Yes.
Sam to answer, please. Chet. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm not surprised by the fact that
Thank
Alameda
you.
was a large fraction of stablecoin deposits and withdrawals on FTX. That doesn't surprise me at all because Alameda was, first of all, a large fraction in general of stablecoin deposits and withdrawals and activity in the crypto ecosystem. But second of all, specifically did do a lot of cross-chain conversions of stablecoins with and through FTX. So in terms of raw notional of blockchain and particularly of stablecoin deposits and withdrawals, especially just in a sort of like zero-sum way where there would be some deposited, some withdrawn, that doesn't surprise me that Alameda had a significant footprint there. However, and in retrospect, I certainly wish that I had done a much deeper dive into Alameda's positions and balances and the history of that on FTX, and that was absolutely a huge oversight.
Why didn't you when there was chatter about this, though?
So the comments that I had been making were around its trading activity. And Alameda's trading volume on FTX had dropped from something like 45% of volume in 2019 to something like 2% of volume in
And is that public
2022.
record? Is there any way to verify that claim?
I've said it many times. I don't know how one would verify it publicly.
Okay,
but
so it's just your word. Okay, go on, continue.
You could ask the relevant teams. You could ask the Chapter 11 team for that data. You could ask anyone who has looked at that data. You could ask
I've just
DM'd you.
you.
You could look at the files that we
I
submitted time and time again to verify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chet, I've just DM'd you as well the data now, so you can check your DM. So go ahead, Sam.
Dang. They ain't playing.
So from a trading and volume perspective, it was the case.
How do y'all think
that
Sam lawyers
Alameda
feel about
had
this?
become
Do you think his lawyer's
fairly
doing while he's
small
watching this?
fraction of FTX's overall
His lawyer
activity.
got to be just.
Now, obviously, that was not true, as it turns out, when you looked at Alameda's positions on the exchange. And again, like, I've made a lot of mistakes here, and that was certainly one of them. Was not paying more attention to balances and positions. I was looking at volume because that's what drove revenue, and that's what to me seemed to be driving like business growth. And so I was looking at volume broken down by by account, but also by geography, by source type, by product, growth over time relative to other venues, and there is nothing that was a real. There's nothing alarming happening in those trends. Obviously, in terms of positions, there was. In terms of the on-chain deposits and withdrawals, that's actually, I think, a little bit of a different thing, which is neither of those two, and I think is related to the fact that Alameda used FTX to convert between different stablecoins a fair bit, and also there were a lot of. So one thing worth knowing here is a lot of the relevant wallets got misidentified on things like Chainalysis between Alameda and FTX.
This guy sucks at explaining shit.
Some of these wallets
literally be about to fall asleep.
basically what FTX was using to convert between two different stablecoins. So if a user, deposited a lot of BUSD and then wanted to withdraw USDC, there would have to be basically, and if the reserves were mostly
Anybody had
in
money on FTX in the
BUSD
chat?
at that point, there'd have to be a redemption of USD, and then a creation of USDC, which would be sent back. And so that activity represented a fair bit of blockchain-based stablecoin deposits and withdrawals to and from FTX. although it was fairly separate from the rest of what was going on.
In what way were you?
Sam,
in what way were you? In what way were you? In what way were you protecting? Sorry, Mario, stop that. In what way were you protecting customer assets?
Sorry, are you? When you say
in what way was
like,
FTX protecting customer assets? Which way did you ensure the protection of customer assets?
So there were some ways that we did. Obviously, there are ways I like deeply, deeply wish that I had done way better at, and deeply regret what happened. The ways that I had been focused on it the most had been looking at a combination of basically of like looking at the cybersecurity side, ensuring that there weren't hacks on the wallets, keeping a counting of the assets, making sure that that didn't deviate from what some balances was, getting gap audits at the end of each year, and also just dealing with, frankly, a lot on the fiat deposit withdrawal side, where customers would be trying to send money to and from the exchange.
And you just mentioned auditors there. Who audited your finances?
It's sorry, I'm not 100% sure if it's public who that is. I can say so after, presuming that it is. I think probably
Sam,
was
Prager Metis a
that is correct.
Auditor? Okay.
Yeah.
And
Sam,
I'll give Rand. Rand, you want to ask a question? We'll give it back to Chet.
I'd just finish what I'm saying here first, and then
okay, go ahead.
Chet, and then
the interruptions really aren't helping. Where were they headquartered?
It was a U.S.-based firm.
Okay, and now the Bohemian securities regulator issued a statement on November 17th saying they ordered FTX to move, quote, Bohemian funds on November 12th. Is that correct?
There is a statement that was roughly like that. I don't remember the details of it.
Okay, and were you able? You were the one who functioned this out, according to your statements to pretty much everyone over the past few days. You functioned this out. Were you able to do this as you were still the controlling owner of Alameda and the debtor, or what gave you the capability to do this after the Chapter 11 was technically filed?
I don't believe that I've confirmed that as the one who did it, because I was largely not. But in addition to that,
hold on a second. You have stated in your interview with Tiffany Fong just a few days ago that you in fact told them of your intentions to do this at least a day prior to them even making a request. Is that correct?
Sorry, intentions to do what?
To move the Bohemian funds. I don't believe I'm unclear on that at all.
That I told who to do that, because I don't believe
the Bohemian regulators. You don't think that's correct? Okay. Would you? Okay. So hold on 1 second while I play for you your own audio, and for everyone listening, this is from an interview with Sam Bankman-Fried and Tiffany Fong.
Sam, you may have came into the
from
wrong
just
chat.
a few days ago.
Withdrawals were opened first to citizens of Antigua or Bahamas. Yes. Yes, and then the regulators or securities said that was not approved.
Yeah,
Wait, sorry.
All right, so I gave them a heads up, a 1-day heads up that we were going to do it. They didn't say yes or no. They didn't respond, and then we did it. The reason I did it was it was critical to the exchange being able to have a future, because that's where I am right now, and you do not want to be in the country with a lot of angry people in it, and you do not want your company to be incorporated in a country with a lot of angry people in it. And so it was, realistically speaking, it's shitty, but the pathway forward for FTX involved Bahamians not being pissed at it.
Because I guess it could have been looked at as insider withdrawal sort of thing.
Oh, it wasn't insider withdrawals. No, this was trying to create a regulatory pathway forward for the exchange.
Just to kind of appease the citizens of the country that you're currently in, basically.
And that the company was about to be assigned a provisional liquidator. And
okay, so that seems to directly refute what you just told me, does it not?
Dang.
Sam, you're muted.
Hey, sorry. The incident that you were referring to was a different one, I believe, or at least the incident that if you repeat where that came from, the incident that I believe, or sorry, start that question over again. I at least inferred that you were talking about a time when Bohemian.
I stated the Bohemian Securities Regulator issued a statement on November 17th saying they ordered FTX to move Bohemian funds on November 12th, so 5 days prior. And you have then confirmed that to Tiffany Fong, saying that you did move those funds.
No, those are referring to different
to the Bohemian
things.
regulators.
Those are referring to two different incidents.
Okay, so then you okay.
Sorry, go
hold
ahead.
on a second, Mario. Hold on a second.
Mario. Just give Sam the opportunity to answer, bro.
Yeah, I'm going to, but I'm reframing the question, and you're really not helping right now. So the Bohemian funds on November 12th were removed. You're saying are separate. So what was the separation? So you're saying did you move Citizens funds and actually allow Citizens to withdraw funds?
Hi.
In which incident?
Oh, I just wanted
the incident in which you're referring to Tiffany Fong.
That was a separate thing where we briefly had withdrawals open.